And we went to the Eagle together.
Oh boy, that is not part of the family-friendly podcast.
Oh, they're good times for all.
I'm going to get rid of that relationship.
Oh, I love that so much.
We are constantly hearing people's narrative about our life.
Did you experience implicit or explicit discrimination? Well, hi, Michael. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Oh, man, I am fantastic.
This morning flew by. I was like, oh, I'm going to be setting up for this, and I'm an hour early, and this is going to
Well,
be
that's what
great.
happens when you wake up at 9 a.m.
Hey, excuse you. Do we want to go into why I didn't get any sleep 2 nights ago?
Do we want to go into why I didn't get any sleep last night?
Was I snoring?
You were so loud. The only difference is that I don't bring it up and put it in your face.
I took 2 bennies last night, and by that I mean Benadryl, not benzos, because I was like, I am so committed to sleeping tonight, and nothing's gonna wake me up. And I did sleep like a dream, and I woke up at 8, and I was like, wow, what's happening?
Just wait until we actually have kids, then we're really not.
How many hours of sleep did you get?
Oh, I don't know. Probably like 6. I'm fine.
Okay, well, better than the 3 that I had the night before.
Take more bennies.
Okay, tonight we're both taking Benadryl and melatonin, and we're just gonna be cutting logs all night.
If you have any sleep advice, let us know, because we're gonna need that soon.
Oh, I know, right? Welcome back to the Who's Your Daddy podcast, where we work to demystify the process of starting a family through non-traditional means.
From foster to adoption to IVF and surrogacy, come along as we navigate this tricky space on our own journey to fatherhood. We are your hosts and husbands, Michael and Matt, and today we are going to be talking to Dustin and Burton.
Welcome.
Hey guys.
Well, today we have some very special guests with us. I think I say that every time, but seriously, I love these guys so much. We have followed these two on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube for ages and ages and ages.
We finally got to meet them in person a couple months ago when we were doing an event in LA.
And we went to the Eagle together.
Oh boy, that is not part of the family-friendly podcast.
Oh, they're
information.
Good times for all. I don't know. I just really love the content that they share because it shows so many moments of joy from their day-to-day lives with their children. And
North Carolina is not necessarily known to be the most LGBTQ friendly state. So I think, one, it's nice to have representation in all facets of our community, but to see people be open and
unapologetically, I don't know.
Unapologetically them as an
Unapologetically.
LGBTQ family in a state that doesn't necessarily embrace you fully is really awesome to see, because I think it empowers a lot of other people to think that, this could be me. I could do this. This could be my life.
We're going to dive into that, see what it was like actually getting to the point of having kids in the South. It is so good to see you guys. It has been a while since we have seen each other and have been able to hang out. But good times in LA,
I wish we
right?
could change that. We need to change that.
Yep.
We're so far away from each other. It's not
I know.
fair.
We're gonna
Literally
plan a daddy
opposite
trip.
ends of the
I know,
country.
Well,
Totally.
if you ever decide to come up to Portland, we do have a little play place in our backyard.
Okay.
We purchased the house and it was there, and we never removed it. So we have a little jungle gym.
You're saying that for me or for Burton?
Well, sometimes I play on
Mostly
it too, but at least I'll have some friends to play on the jungle gym together. I have gone down the slide a few times.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not?
Yeah.
It's a great place to hang out in the summer.
I'm so excited for you guys and doing this journey and
Yeah.
being so transparent about it, which is really, really awesome. Because I think that takes the mystery out of kind of your process. I think when we started sharing our journey, it was after the fact. So this is really cool. It's such a helpful tool for people that are wanting to grow their families.
Absolutely.
It is definitely a little nerve-wracking to not have gone through the whole thing, right? And kind of navigate it along the way and all the twists and turns,
Trying
and
to figure it out as we go.
we don't know what's gonna happen. We don't know how it's gonna turn out. But part of me was like, well, I think that's the fun of it. It's you kind of in real time are watching either success or difficulties, or hopefully no train wrecks of processes and things, but
That's part of life.
Well, that's the thing, is every journey is different.
Yeah.
Every journey is unique, and it's special to you guys, and it'll be a beautiful thing no matter what.
We were just looking at prices the other day, and we were starting to freak out a little bit.
It's hard.
Yeah.
We've been doing deep dives and stress spirals.
It's just hard. Especially when you like have a lack of sleep and then you start thinking about everything and all the like things you still have to do and you're like, how am I ever gonna get over these hurdles?
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle change on that end.
Yeah,
sure.
and you'll never be fully prepared, no matter what. No matter how much you're a planner and a strategist, it's gonna rock your world when you do have the kids. And but it's gonna be well worth everything.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I think that a lot of people going into it, they have this idea of what their life's gonna look like and how this process is going to be and
how their parenting style is going to be.
Or how you're going to, how your relationship will be with your spouse. And honestly, you can just throw all of that out the window because you literally have no idea until it happens.
And it constantly changes.
Yeah.
I am very nervous for all of that, just like the big changes ahead. And I know that there's nothing that we can do to really change or have full control over that, but
that's the beauty of it, though. I mean, I think that's what's so great is because you're going to be stretched and you're going to learn things about yourself and you're going to learn things about each other that you didn't know. So but you guys are already doing. You guys already work together. You're already creating things together, and that's the same thing. Is if you work well together, you spend a lot of time together today. It'll be the same. It's just another problem to solve, another hurdle, another phasing or another chapter. So true.
And you will your relationship will be stronger as a result of that, for sure.
100%.
So we'll say like producing a podcast together is like training
just like
having a baby. Yes. Oh, we get to practice our conflict solving skills. I'm always warm.
So
communication is one of the biggest things, and you guys are doing it already. So
so we obviously know and follow you guys, but if you want to just do like a short introduction of who you are, if there's anybody who's like, who are these guys? I mean, they already love you because look at you, salt of the earth, humans, giving us like the most heartwarming,
wholesome
encouragement and advice. But go ahead, tell us like, who you are.
All right, so I'm Dustin Patrick Smith. That's me on Instagram. And then my husband is...
I'm BB Buffalo. That's 3 B's. BB Buffalo.
And then our TikTok is Dustin and Burton. And we are a gay couple that lives in North Carolina that have twins. And they're going to be turning
7.
I don't know how that's happening.
Wild.
So fast. It's flying by. It truly does.
And they are already basically teenagers, though.
Yeah,
and
especially our daughter. All the sass.
All of the sass.
Yeah.
So, that's perfect.
I want to come out for the birthday party.
Do it.
Let's do it. We need to plan it. We have
I know.
Still trying to come up with a theme.
It's super hot, super humid.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Have a birthday party out here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not humid. It's still hot. Just
the
not
jungle
humid.
gym is ready.
There we go. Let's christen it.
Were you guys born and raised in North Carolina?
Yeah, so I was. I grew up in a small town called Garner, which is about 20 minutes from Raleigh, so very close to here. I did, I kind of lived in Raleigh. I did work remotely for a long time, traveling around to different client sites and stuff for about a decade. So I got experience living in other cities, a lot of different cities, but my home base was always Raleigh.
And then I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. So I moved to Charlotte when I was 3 from Washington State. So I don't really remember much. So like my dad stayed in Washington, so I got to have glimpses of that, but North Carolina really has been my home since I was really young. So, and then I bounced around and then ended up relocating to Raleigh, which is where we met. So yeah. North Carolina boys right here.
North Carolina boys.
And when did you guys meet? When did you get married? When did you first discuss having kids?
We've been friends for a long time before we actually started dating. Right?
Yeah.
So it was 2000. I think it was 2005. I could be wrong, give or take a year. But it was around 2005. I was in a relationship, and
I was like, I'm going to get rid of that relationship.
Oh, I love that so much.
Just
get
kidding.
it.
No, I was in a long term relationship, and he came. He knew my ex boyfriend at the time.
Yeah.
And how did you know him?
I met him randomly on a beach trip, and we exchanged numbers because just the gays, they find each other. They're like the inseam on that bathing suit is way too short. They must be gay. They're gonna be my friend.
Exactly.
My brother went to to NC State, which is a college that's here in Raleigh. And I said, hey, when I'm in Raleigh visiting my brother, I would love to have some gay friends to go out with. And so we exchanged numbers and we kept in contact. So I was living in Miami, and I decided to move to New York, but I did a pit stop in Raleigh to hang out with my brother for a little bit. And that pit stop actually ended up being, forever. So I never left.
Wow.
But when I first moved to Raleigh for that small, couple months that I thought I was going to stay, I called his ex and I said, hey, I'm in town for a few months. And he invited me to a house party, which happened to be at Burton's condo. And so that's how we met. And we were just friends, truly. It was like no shady business. Like we truly were friends. And
for a long time.
For years.
Till 2012.
Yeah.
And then I was out of my relationship, and I didn't know if Dustin was single or not, but I walked up to him in a bar and said, hey, did you know that I'm single?
And I was like, no, I didn't. And then he made sure that I had his number. He grabbed my phone to make sure that his contact was in there. But
he said, yeah, I have your number. And I'm like, no, I need to confirm.
Yeah. So yeah. So then we started dating, and you asked the question, like, when did we start discussing kids? To be honest with you, I was kind of frustrated living in Raleigh because I was having a hard time meeting someone, and I was considering moving to New York. And so I was selling my business. I was headed to New York. And when I stumbled into Burton, one of the things that I was longing for is to find someone that was like a serious partner who wanted to build a family. And he's the same way.
So I was kind of living in DC at the time, traveling back and forth for work, but I stayed there a lot. So I was dating some guys in DC. And one of the biggest, questions was, hey, or do you want a family? And, most of the guys were like, nope, don't want that. So, we'd have one date and that's it. Because I was looking, we're in our mid-30s at this point.
Yeah.
And so we need to go ahead and start this process. I'm a big planner, and I was already really delayed on my plans of starting a family.
You didn't want you didn't want to waste your time with someone that didn't have to share your same life goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so I was just like, I need to find it.
You were aligned and go that path. Yeah. Together. Yeah.
I mean, we could still have a fun date, but then, I'm probably wanting, I would move on to the next date to find the husband and the father of my children. We stayed in North Carolina, right? Because it's such an amazing place to raise kids. It's so easy. Raleigh is an easy city.
Yeah, there's a true ease to this town.
Yeah, sure. I just could not imagine raising, kids in a larger city than this,
Yeah.
And so this was something that we were like, okay, we're definitely settling here. And we actually before we even had kids, we built a house while we were engaged, right?
Yeah.
As we were engaged, we built a house knowing that we were going to have a family, the house we're in right now. And so we
looked for like the perfect schools, public schools, and found the perfect neighborhood. And then the way we designed the house was kid friendly, because we were like, you put it out there, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we were like, we are going to have kids one day. So we need, a landing pad, like a landing on our stairs, so that if a baby falls down.
When was all this happening? Like 2013, 2014?
Yes.
We got engaged in 2014. We got married in 2015.
Yes.
And that was just after it was legalized here. So it was so in October, I could get the date wrong, but it was October of 2014. Okay. In North Carolina, we were able to get married because we were already planning actually to move, or not to get married in California.
Yeah,
and so we had a pit stop in, and because we were going on a honeymoon to New Zealand, and we had a pit stop in, was it San Francisco?
Yeah, so we were going to go to the courthouse, get married, just to make it valid, and then when North Carolina changed the law that we could get married, it was so exciting because we wanted to just do that here, so we did, and then, believe it or not, we had kids a year later. So we were just like
a year later.
Well, here's the thing. So we dated for about a year. We were engaged for a year, and then we got married, right? And then had kids a year later. And people often think that's fast, but we were friends forever.
Yeah, it was,
so all the skeletons were out of the closet. Yeah. It was like dating your friend, someone that you truly knew. When you're dating someone that you don't know, it takes a long time to really know who they really are, like all of a sudden, like that fake facade they put down, and then they reveal who they are. I already knew that about Burton. He already knew that about me. So that's why it went rather fast.
Yeah. From starting the process of having kids like 12 months later, you were like in the hospital. Like,
So it was 14 months from the start of when we first walked into a fertility clinic.
When you guys were starting this process of surrogacy,
Yeah.
this was around the time that gay marriage was legalized in the U.S. overall. And then you said it was just legalized October 2014 in North Carolina. So, and it's the time of like the whole bathroom bill fiasco. So around this time when you're starting the process of surrogacy, what was that conversation looking like between you guys when you're talking about raising a family here and really going through this process with, you know, you have to work with other companies, other people. Did you experience implicit or explicit discrimination against you as a gay couple going through surrogacy during this time?
I don't know if we faced discrimination outright, but there was definitely a heightened fear during that time. And also, I remember being an election cycle, right? Was that happening at the same time? In 2016 when the kids were born?
Yeah,
So that
15,
was,
16.
okay, so
that was an
big.
election
Okay,
cycle
so,
for
so
the books.
I just remember being like, had that
Speaking of
heightened sense
PTSD.
of anxiety around everything that was just happening, right? Because, you know, once marriage equality, once it was legal for us to get married, there was still there's tons of backlash that was happening right on the back of that. At the same time, the bathroom bill's happening. At the same, there was just too many things that were coming at us during the time our babies were in the womb, and it was just like, this is, you know, what type of environment are we bringing our kids into?
You know, we don't live in this state of fear. We live in a state of, you know, of happiness and proud that we have kids. And so, you know, if we're faced these things, we deal with them as they come, but we don't really deal with that very much, which I feel very fortunate. And I think the only thing that happened during that time, just going back to your question, we were like one of the first couples in North Carolina to actually get both of our names put on their birth certificate, which was pretty amazing. So we had twins, and the way that we did that is we did surrogacy. We have a gestational carrier, so it's not, she has no biological ties to our children, right? So we had a separate egg donor. And we implanted 2 eggs. One was fertilized with my DNA. One was fertilized with Burton's DNA. And miraculously, they both took, which was, we were so over the moon. That was kind of the dream. We were hoping to have twins and just kind of one and done type of thing. We knew that at some point they were going to have to do a blood test where they stick a needle in to find out whose baby is whose, even though they're both ours, you know? And I did not want to do that because the laws at the time, you had to do that. And I would have had to second parent adopt his, you know,
biological kid,
baby A, and then he would have to, right? And so
can't that also be kind of like a risky or just uncomfortable experience to go through like that test?
That test is, there have been some you know,
some issues, but that's the law, is that we have
but
to.
But that only would apply for a same-sex couple, correct? Because like a different sex couple, you would know who the dad is. So
but in order to be on the birth certificate, you have to like, even though you know, because you have all that information from the IVF clinic.
The birth certificates only said, you know, mother and father, right? It didn't say what it says today.
Yeah. And
you know, during that time, we were working with a lawyer. We had an amazing lawyer who was very well connected and doing a lot of the back end politics with, you know, how to change this behind the scenes. And she was our direct lawyer who helped us with, you know, the fertility, all the contracts and judge sign offs and all these other things. But we were getting close to when the babies were going to be born. We were 2 months away, and we had water. And
then our gestational carrier water broke, which sent the fear through us. You know, like it was so early, like 2 months early. And so she gets rushed into the hospital on bed rest, and we're all praying that she can just kind of stay on bed rest to keep the babies in longer, just so they can develop, because every day at that point makes a huge difference in their development. And he calls the lawyer.
Yeah, I call the lawyer and say, hey, where are we at on some of these legal things? because our babies may be coming anytime now. And she goes, I need 2 days. It was like a Thursday or something, or maybe a Friday. She goes, I need 2 days. I'm walking into the state legislature or courthouse or whatever it was she was going into to fight for us, you know, to make sure that we could have both of our names on the birth certificate. And we didn't have to do this test beforehand. And then when she was on bed rest for 2 weeks, the babies were were born, and but she called several days before that and said everything is great now. Both of your names will be on the birth certificate.
Yeah. So
and,
we were. It was literally like scratched out, and it said like parent, or right? It was like was it guardian or parent? Is it parent?
It's either
one, parent
guardian
two.
one, guardian
whatever.
two.
So we didn't have to do that test, and that felt so good. And like little wins like that, where I was like, I see progress is happening.
Yep.
Like
That's
we're now
encouraging.
legally able to get
That's
married,
so
and now we
encouraging.
legally have our names on our baby's
birth
birth
certificate.
certificates. And so those are the things you focus on. And I know this is silly, but like we to this day don't know who's
Who's the biological dad of the other.
I am all about like they are our kids.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I have to say, no matter your path, if you are fostering, if you're adopting, if you do surrogacy, when you have children, they are your children.
Yep.
Yeah.
And those two children are our children. And I don't want to know. I don't want to know whose DNA is who. We kind of know. Right. I mean, like we kind of know.
Yeah.
But we don't know technically. And
I
love
There's
that.
no testing to confirm, and you didn't have to do it.
And the funny thing is, it's so amazing seeing on Instagram people commenting like you'll see. I'll post a picture with me and Stone, and everyone will be like, "Y'all look exactly the same."
Yeah.
And then I'll post with Holland, and it'll be like exactly the same.
Yeah,
and Dustin will do the same, and everyone's like, "You guys look
everyone's
exactly
so
the
split. That
Everyone's
trying
like,
to guess, and I think it's cute.
It's
That
I mean,
is
it's
cute.
human nature.
That's
You're curious, but it's also it's just it's very it's great that people can't figure that out.
When you did your IVF, you split the eggs and then did half and half, or did you?
Yeah. We split them. Yeah,
we retrieved. The eggs we retrieved, we split them in half, right?
And then you just picked like the healthiest embryo.
Yeah, the most viable ones.
Yep.
And we still have several. 7 or 8 maybe that are still viable.
Yeah.
So you just picked the best ones.
Yep.
And then did they do PGT testing to find out the sex of the embryo?
No, we didn't want to do any of that.
So you said no, but that was an option. Cool.
And this is kind of interesting. Y'all didn't use agency, correct? A surrogacy agency. So you kind of like went independently, but not.
Yeah.
You said the IVF clinic kind of helped.
But we had a huge support group at this IVF clinic, and they're amazing, right? And we've sent a lot of folks to them, who reach out and say, hey, they want to start the journey. And we've had several people in different states come here and have their
even different countries
and have their kids here.
What's
in North
the name
Carolina.
of the IVF clinic?
It's called Carolina Conceptions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shout out. They really are amazing.
Yeah,
so what they did is they do IVF, right? They do they help out with anyone that needs help with fertility. And so they do have basically an egg bank, right?
They have a database with eggs. They have a database with gestational carriers.
But here's the difference. They're gestational carriers, the people that, that we had to go and interview. They have people that have contacted them saying, hey, we would be interested in being a surrogate if anyone's interested. But that's about it. That's all the vetting they do. So then we had to then take that list, email the people that we were interested in talking to. Some of the girls that we were interested in weren't interested in working with us because we were a gay couple. So that happened. Well, it's okay. It's fine. Trust me. Like that's good to know right from
Not
the
fine.
out the gate. Like if there's an issue, let's. I'm glad you're very direct.
No, I know. Yeah, you'd rather know that ahead of time.
Oh, absolutely.
So that was a really crazy experience because we didn't have an agency helping us. It was basically setting up these blind dates, the most awkward blind dates ever with the potential gestational carrier and their husband.
She would always bring her husband or her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Are these in person?
In person, yeah. So we interviewed.
We learned,
wow! And we learned as we went.
I'm interested in this. I want to hear more about these dates. I want to be a fly on that wall watching this happen.
If y'all are ever doing this and considering do this, don't do what we did, which was the very first person we interviewed. We had them come into our home.
Oh yeah.
And it was just awkward. Like we're sitting there, like you need to meet in a public place.
Yes.
Like it was
Starbucks.
In case you need. Yes, exactly.
It was just really awkward, and you can tell that her husband and her were not on the same page because there was this tension that was happening while we were trying to get to know them, and it was just awkward. It was so awkward, but. We interviewed, I would say, how many people we interviewed? 8 people.
Yeah.
Until we found the girl that we wanted. And then the girl that we picked, we loved her family, loved her husband, loved her kids. We had to then have a psych evaluation done. And she didn't pass the psych evaluation. So we were like so excited that we like finally found someone that felt right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, bam, she didn't pass the psych evaluation.
Yeah. And that's the difference with an agency. They would have already taken her through that.
Yeah.
And everything's kind of a la carte too. So you're kind of building, as you're reaching out to the surrogates or the legal teams or the psych evaluations, you're paying as you go for these things.
This is so interesting. The thought of working with an IVF clinic and going through this process, not having an agency, but the IVF clinic seemed to have really gone above and beyond in providing resources.
That's
for
why we say they're
even down to our lawyer, the amazing lawyer that we love so much. She was recommended by this IVF clinic. And we wouldn't have known her had we not been paired with her through the IVF clinic.
And they had several of them, and they said, for you need to go contact her. That's the one you need to go with.
Which is
and so we were
amazing.
And so they didn't just have a list of people that they were like, oh, these are some lawyers that we found on Google. They knew these lawyers, and so they were able to. They said, this is the perfect one for you.
It's like a surrogacy agency IVF clinic all in one.
Yeah, exactly. And when we met with our lawyer dealing with the contract, she was like, okay, so how much are you gonna pay her for this, or how much are you gonna do if this happens? And we don't know. We were just such fish out of water.
We were like deer in headlights when she's asking.
She's like, okay, let me just help you. So like generally it's from like, this is the range. And so she was amazing because she's done this before. So I feel very fortunate. We were very fortunate.
Our hands were held through the whole thing, like an agency,
without having to pay for. Obviously we had to do a little more groundwork. Obviously, those interviews and like the psych evaluation, all that stuff was incredibly stressful. The first one didn't pass. The second one didn't pass either. But I knew, the second one was the one that we were like, we know she is the one. Like it just felt so right. And that's what I have to say with anyone going through this process. Just, you have to listen to your gut. And you can't force things to happen, because if you feel like you're forcing something just because you want it to happen faster, that is bad news. Like you have to trust your gut. And so the reason, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this because I think like she shared some information with us that she probably shouldn't have. But the reason our actual gestational carrier that we did pick, that was her tests were showing like it wasn't going to work out, was because she looked too good to be true. But here's the thing, like that was our gestational carrier. She was that giving, that loving, that
she's
willing to, she's like and so like that was her character. She did pinpoint that, thinking like something was suspicious, but that's just who she is as a person.
So the psych evaluator thought that she was like too good
to be true. Like with all the things like her,
it's kind of like she knew the questions and answered them right, but she was that person and really was like amazing angel.
That is crazy.
That's so interesting.
That is crazy to me.
What?
Yeah. So we're so blessed to have her like had that experience with her.
She had so many green flags that it was a red flag.
Right, like exactly.
It's just like you take a test and you 100 on it and the rest of it, I don't know. And
she must be cheating.
Like, no.
There must be something
you must
wrong.
be cheating.
Wow.
Exactly. So
I just find it really interesting that you were able to interview so many prospective surrogates and be able to make that determination yourself, but then it also kind of exposes you to the rawness of it,
exactly.
That's
the weird cases.
It's hard because I feel like when we picked an egg donor, it happened pretty fast. We were kind of like, yep, this feels right. Mm-hmm. But the second, the person that you're going to be working with, who's an angel enough to carry your children or child, that was a really hard thing for us. Like it was hard for us to wrap our minds around. How do you pick the right person? Because what are you looking for, and how are you going to figure that out over an hour interview over coffee? Like it just, do you know what I mean? Like,
there's a lot of components to it, because you're also dealing with their spouse and their emotions during this, because it's different. They may have a family with kids and other things. How are you navigating that?
Yeah,
and also people's personalities change when they're pregnant. Are they eating a healthy lifestyle, or do they smoke? Do they drink?
Are they lying about why their intentions of why they want to do this?
Fearful that they're going to pack up and leave, and all of a sudden your kids are you have no clue. So there's a lot of anxiety.
It's out of your control, a lot of it. And it was funny because so Burton's family owns a wholesale produce company. And so we were like, we can't control how she's living. So you know what we're doing? We're going to drop her off a box of fresh vegetables every single week. And she loved it. Yes. And so we were just like constantly dropping off baskets of like just huge vegetables and kale and like all the things. I
would actually really love that too. Y'all feel free to send me vegetables in the mail anytime, please. Especially the price of produce nowadays.
Oh, you know what made me think of another point of kind of fear and discrimination kind of during this. We had picked our gestational carry at this point. We had implanted, the 2 eggs, and they were successful. And we had 2 babies on the way. Right. Our lawyer told us that our surrogate, especially during the later months of the of the pregnancy, that she is not allowed to travel outside of specific states. Said she's not allowed to go here, or here. And because if she's there and you have those babies, they are not your babies. So
backstory. She asked. She was asking if she could fly. It was pretty late, and I'm glad she didn't because she was 2 months early, and she was like going to travel like maybe the week that her water broke. But she was. So it was kind of late in the pregnancy, and she wanted to fly to go see family. And we talked to our lawyer
in Texas,
and she said if she ends up going to Texas and having those children at the time, and I don't know if it's the same now, but in Texas at the time, that they wouldn't
recognize this, and those would be her babies, and then we would have to
adopt our children from her. Yeah.
So, but she would hold all the power, and if she decided she wanted to keep them, then she would totally legally be within the right.
She was an amazing, but still, it's another loophole you'd have to go through, right? Judges would have to sign off. Who knows how long and costly that process is? So that's another thing. If you're going through this process, that's the thing we also have to be worried about is where the surrogate is at the time she gives birth, and so that's another component to this.
So as you're navigating this, make sure that you know your state's laws.
Just get a good family lawyer there that knows this in your state, and make sure they know the LGBTQ laws there, because that's extremely important. Not just family law. You need to make sure someone is really familiar with the laws.
But it's very weird. Like it must have been sometime, I don't know when it was passed, but it must have been sometime between when you guys were having your kids and now. But like Texas actually has pretty good surrogacy laws for LGBTQ people now, even though like Texas as a whole is sort of like a little bit weird about a lot of things. But we can be father 1 and father 2 on the birth certificate, like right away. And in Oregon, it's only parent 1 and parent 2. So it's weird. It's like, wait, why is it easier to have father 1, father 2 on TikTok?
But it goes to show how much has changed in the last 7 years.
I think it's changed a lot.
Now, before we even walked into the fertility clinic, we were looking at all the different options to start a family. So we started looking into foster and adoption first. As viable options, and we and through that research we knew it would take a lot longer to go that route. And because of the climate we are in North Carolina, it is a lot harder to foster and even adopt here.
I think at the time, especially, maybe not necessarily now. I think things are different, but we're talking, this was us 8 years ago looking at this, right?
So before marriage was even legalized, right? So basically adopting a kid to 2 guys that aren't legally married is what you would
in North Carolina.
In North Carolina,
was that even something that was possible, or was it like kind of unheard of? Like no, that doesn't happen here.
No, it happens. We know people that adopted here. They were successful, and we definitely picked people's brains just to find out what would be the right path for us.
Yep.
A lot of times when we were speaking to people that went through adoption, they said, just so you know, it could take a really long time. Like, you have to find the right agency and find the right placement. It could take 5 years, could take 6 years, could take one day. You might get a call. And I think that was hard for us because we knew that we wanted to move fast because we were in our mid-30s.
Control. We want to control.
Yeah, we wanted to have a little more control of our narrative of when we could have actual kids. Not that you can fully control that when you are doing surrogacy, right? So, but a little bit more. It felt that way at the time.
Yeah.
And we definitely were picking people's brains about foster care. We were picking people's brains about adoption. And at the time, just because the climate was a little strained in North Carolina, that you have to remember this was a time that the whole, bathroom bill was happening.
Yep.
And there, I just felt, and we were like making North Carolina was making headlines even in like overseas, like in the London Post, like, right. And I was like, oh God.
Weren't we in New Zealand when people were talking about that? We were somewhere overseas. And someone mentioned, oh, North Carolina, that's the bathroom bill. And we were somewhere, and it was just the most random thing. And we were like, that really, like, they would have never known what North Carolina is, except for we had a hateful climate at the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think like this only grows more when you become a parent. Like, I think that you're just constantly want to protect your family and make sure that you're making, the right choices and living in the safest place. And at the time we were like, oh, wow, should we live here? Like, I mean, is this going to be problematic? Even though we personally have felt really embraced by our community. Yep. And that's only grown since we've had kids, but that was part of our thinking. And that's why we ended up going to this fertility clinic, and they just to pick their brains. We just wanted to get information. We had no idea. Right. So you have to understand, we weren't on social media. Like, I feel like social media was kind of just blossoming.
It's very different back then.
Extremely different.
I wasn't following gay dads. I wasn't, the only gay people I knew that had kids were like Ricky Martin and Neil Patrick Harris and people that had all these
resources. Somewhat unattainable in a way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then here we are, two North Carolina boys, like looking into us. It felt impossible. So we went to this fertility clinic just to pick their brain. And after meeting with them, we looked at each other and said, this feels right. Like, this feels like the path we should take.
It could be a little selfish. I want to see a little piece of Dustin in a kid. And I know he wants to see the same for me. I mean, I think if we weren't a gay couple, any straight couple feels the same way.
Oh, I mean, it's a human desire.
Yeah, so. You want to see you being passed on. You want to create a legacy, and
I don't think there's anything abnormal about that.
No, and I think it's so interesting, and it sucks because we're so conditioned, I think, to view surrogacy as selfish, and so then we start like looking inside ourselves and thinking like, oh my God, like, is
what's
this
wrong
selfish?
with
like,
me?
Oh my gosh, am I a selfish person? And then you're like, no absolutes here. So the majority, I would say, right, of straight couples, like, it's like you're having your own kids because you're like getting joy out of seeing a little part of you in them. Yeah. And like, that's like human nature. And like, but like we are meant to sort of like feel bad about that, or like it's there's so many things that we have to feel like we calculate, right? And I think hopefully in the future,
I mean, it goes into this like perfectionism and needing to prove yourself or in a way prove your worthiness, that you're a good person, because that's kind of like how I grew up thinking as a closeted gay kid, like, oh, nobody's going to accept me if they knew the truth about me, so I need to do these altruistic things. And that got me involved in youth group and very involved in my church, etc. Like all that kind of stuff. So
people who think like, oh, it's a choice, and it's like, no, it's so much easier to be straight. Like, it's just so much easier to like for life things. And it's like, I didn't choose to not want to be with a woman, and just because that biology doesn't work out, but I'm made to feel bad about wanting biological, like, kids that are biologically maybe half of me, and it's like,
right.
You're just like, where does it's just like hammer after hammer. It's just like, you chose to be gay and you shouldn't be able to have kids that are biologically yours. And it's like, I don't know, like, just, I'm jumping through all these hoops that you never had to jump through. And like, why does it have to even be negative at all about it?
I find that really surprising, because I think like I wasn't anticipating people's reactions like that until we started going through the process of having, we found a gestational carrier, we got pregnant, and I was doing hair at the time, and actually had a client that stopped coming to me because she did not think, she was fine with me being gay, but she did not think that it was right for me to have a kid through surrogacy. Yeah. And I was really puzzled by that reaction.
It was like you ruin your own life, don't ruin a kid's life, kind of thing.
Well, and it was even like, it was definitely the surrogacy part, which I thought was really hurtful to me. And I think as gay people, we are constantly hearing people's narrative about our life, and that's really frustrating because it's like you have like people are constantly debating like the way we live, right?
Yeah.
And that's really frustrating because I don't think a lot of straight people necessarily, I mean, obviously there might be parts of their life, but as a whole of who you are being gay, you don't have people debating and having a narrative and a conversation about, is that right? Is that wrong? And so for me to have the joy of getting pregnant and like us like getting our gestational carrier pregnant and finding out we were having twins, I was so excited. It was shocking to me how many people came to me and said, I don't think gay people you should be able to only do foster or adoption. And that really hurt my feelings. Even a friend of mine even said it to me. And then of course we are very public on social media, so we'll get those comments as well. And I find that so fascinating because one, all the guys that said that to me don't have kids, they don't want kids. Like they can speak into my life and say, you should not have a kid. This should not be the path that you have kids. And even though, like, why do you even have an opinion? You're not even a parent yourself.
They're not even,
that's the same as us saying you need to have kids.
Right, exactly.
You're selfish because you don't have kids.
And the other thing is, you would never say that to a straight couple who might have fertility issues that go the route of using IVF to be able to grow their family. You would never say you shouldn't do that. You should adopt or have or do fostering. And so I just think that's really interesting, especially in our community, that there is this, they're being judgmental of each other,
kind of double
in
standard.
A group of people that you're supposed to be their community members. It's interesting.
And also you don't know our journey either. I mean, we went the surrogacy route the first time, but how do you know we're open to fostering?
We've talked about that,
and adopting. It doesn't matter. This is not, the door's not closed. That's not the book is done, right?
100%.
It's not the last chapter.
I don't think anyone should judge any person's journey on how they decide to grow their family. I think that you should love each other and be excited.
As long as they're doing it with love. Yeah.
Exactly.
Out of desire to love and to have children and to take care of those children.
Yeah, it's so true.
I mean, what more could you bring to the world than like a loving place for children to grow up?
And I mean, like, maybe this is news to people, but like, gay people aren't the only people who use surrogates. Like,
I know.
There are straight people out there who maybe are some type of celebrity or something, and like maybe they just don't want to be pregnant because that's going to impede their career and they aren't ready for that. Or there are people who can't get pregnant because of health issues. And it's so funny. I actually remember this story that was on like national news, like Good Morning America is like kind of what we always watch. It was this woman who couldn't conceive herself, couldn't have a child herself. And they did a whole spotlight on like her surrogate and how the surrogate helped her have a child and like how special that was. And it's like, we're celebrating that, for a straight couple on national television, but telling gay couples who are doing the exact same thing that like they shouldn't be able to do that, or they don't deserve to do that.
I want to go back to other people talking about the narrative, like giving a narrative to your story and imposing themselves when they don't know anything about it, and how damaging that can be. Because I do see these debates and things like the bathroom bill come up and all of the legal issues that are coming up in the US right now, attacks against drag, attacks against the trans community, and just so many laws and issues that are coming up everywhere that's just flooding Congress, and how damaging that is to the community as a whole. Because like you said, we don't see people debating the idea of being straight or how straight people have kids, or what you do in straight bars, or how straight people dress and what bathroom straight people can go in, and etc. Like it's not equal, we know that, but what that can do psychologically to people when that's what you see in the news all the time is this debate of like, is there something fundamentally wrong with you?
And we're big boys, right? And so we can take these battles. What we're constantly I guess, fearful of is that our kids are growing up in this climate, right? They hear the wrong soundbite on a news thing, and they know that their dads are gay, and so they hear the wrong soundbite, or someone mentions it, or maybe another kid at school says that, and they start to feel less than. They start to feel like something's wrong with their family. That's what we're most afraid of.
Yeah,
because we can handle ourselves. We don't want our kids to grow up in an atmosphere where they're hearing all these negative thoughts about their family.
Do you see that impact?
So I think we learned really early on how to kind of handle this. Now you have to remember just a little backstory. I grew up in a very conservative household in the South. Like, I was going to go to seminary right out of high school just because I honestly just wanted to not be gay. And I thought if I got closer to God that he would change me. I went through conversion therapy. I went and had deliverance sessions when I came out where they were casting demons out of me. So there was a lot of self-hate within me. Yeah. I never thought that I would ever get to the point that I would find love, get married, have children. And I was super proud of that when I finally got out of all of that self-hate and started to love myself and like myself and find the person I wanted to be with for the rest of my life, and then be blessed with having a family, I was just very proud. Right. And so I think that, we have been in moments where there's still that piece of me that has that sense of shame, because that's just how I was brought up. Right. Even though I've come so far, being proud of who I am, and now so happy to exist and have this beautiful life that I feel really blessed with. Early on, I remember going to a grocery store and the clerk was ringing up our items, and our kids were really young. We had babies, and she was so puzzled by us. We were standing there holding our kids, and she was like, "So are y'all babysitting for your wives?" And we were like, "No." First of all,
that's an issue.
If any husband's babysitting for their wife, that is not what you're supposed to be doing.
Get out of that relationship.
Yeah, that's not babysitting. It's called parenting. But so we were like, "No, we're married. These are our kids." And then she was just like, "Well, what is one yours? One, I don't." And she was so confused and so perplexed. And the old Dustin in the beginning kind of wanted to be clam up a little bit. And then I realized, my children were babies at that point. They didn't know what was happening, but it's so important that when people confront you or ask about your family, you say it with such confidence and such love, and this is my husband, these are our kids, and we're out getting groceries. Can you please, do paper instead of plastic, so just be more direct. And so, we have had little windows of that, but it's how you handle it in front of your children, because they're sponges. And we've been an open book from day one about how they came to exist. And so it was really cute because we just got back from California and we're sitting by the pool, and I see our kids in the pool and they're playing with this little girl, and she was like, "How come you don't have a mom?" And they were like, "We just have two dads. All families look different." And they said it in such a confident way. And it was so matter of fact that I was like, well, there we go. It's working, because I think the more you just, you're talking
with a kid, it's black and white. There really is. Now, the earlier you start, educating them and talking to them about this and doing it without shame or confusion, they're going to be just as direct and matter of fact with their statements to other people.
And to go back to what you asked about, that goes with everything. We have a trans friend that, if my kids can use her pronouns and without even blinking an eye, we could learn a lot from our kids. I mean, I think these prejudice and all these weird things that us, as we get older and become hateful and small-minded, we can learn so much, and they've taught us so much.
I just think what a powerful message to give to your children, to live confidently and with pride, and making that transition from this place of shame and guilt, growing up thinking that there's something wrong with you, to be able to make that change now and say, no, I'm proud of who I am, and I'm living a life with love, and I'm providing for my family. And to continuously repeat that to people who kind of in your face look at you in disbelief or express doubt just on your humanity, being able to look back at them and proudly say, this is my husband, these are my kids, and and your kids be able to learn from that, that's really powerful.
I was gonna say, I think that's also a testament to, one, not only your kids but you guys as parents, right? Like, you instilled that in them, you taught them that. They didn't create that on their own, they were guided along the way. So like, one, kudos to you. And then I was also gonna say, this is just a little like personal anecdote that sort of touches on, like, if you teach kids to accept people and love people, that they will. When we were first dating, I have a lot of nieces and nephews, lots of them. There's 23, I think, and 24. 24 is in the oven right now.
Wow.
So I've been an uncle since I was 14. We met when I was like 24. So I have 10 years of, however many kids that is at 24, 25. Most of my family accepting. The sector of my family that wasn't made it a point to send like an email to us and loop in my parents about how we were supposed to act in front of their kids because they didn't want them exposed to that.
They didn't want them to know that gay people exist.
And I was trying to explain that, like, well, one, they were like, don't be over affectionate, no kissing, no long hugs. And I was like, what do you think we're doing? Like, what we've been, and this wasn't the first time we'd been around their family. It's like, it's just that it was Christmas. And I was like, have we ever been like overly displaying affection in front of you? No. Two, why do you think that you get to control my life as a 24, 25-year-old because I'm gay? And three, like, your kids are growing up in a world that they're going to see people who are different, and like teaching them that they are bad and wrong is not good. And I didn't say it in those words, but I had some sort of response, right? Like, and the response was, I can't wait until you have kids, and I think you don't understand because you don't have kids. And I think this will be interesting when you have kids to see what your perspective is. And I was like, well, my kids are going to be raised by two gay parents. What do you think their perspective is going to be? I don't know. Yeah. It's just the amount of like, I don't know, self-righteousness in like the whole exchange is just so bonkers.
I was just going to say that the teaching your children not to be accepting of other people also teaches them not to be accepting of themselves, and anything that may come up that's different or that they notice that's different about them from other people.
Immediately they're like, my dad or my mom will not like this part of me, so I'm just going to hide it and show it down, and it may not be a bad part of you. It's something that may be a very special part of your personality.
Anything that comes up that's not normal about them, they're going to despise.
So kids will run up and hug and love and do everything that they want to do innately until you as a parent say, no, that's bad. Right. Don't do that. That's danger. That's this. And so, but they innately just are so loving and friendly. Like, who are you? And like, the run up to anybody, and you have to talk about stranger danger and things like that. And unfortunately, that situation that you were just talking about, she's the one teaching the hate, because if they saw you guys together hugging or whatever on it, I can assure you, at least from my experience now with kids, they wouldn't bat an eye.
Yep.
But the fact that she's now teaching the danger, the no, she's the one installing that. That's the sad part, right? So,
right. And then the kids are going to have to deconstruct that later.
Yes.
Right? Because like the way that the world is moving, the way that like I think each generation is growing up and seeing more people be comfortable with who they are. It's like there's no way that thought process is going to like last, and there's just it's going to be deconstructed at some point, and then they're going to have to like unpack that themselves, and hopefully they have like people to help them do that. But yeah, it's just like come on.
That's why
really?
I feel like we, in the at least the immediate area where we built our family, where our kids go to school, we are in a very open-minded community, even to the point where we have this past weekend I went on a daddy-daughter trip. This is a thing called Y Guides, and so we went on a daddy-daughter trip together to this cabin and did like a whole weekend type of thing with all of my daughter's friends. There was 8 of them in that group. Two of the eight girls have same-sex parents out of that group, And so,
Okay.
and the group is so welcome, so warming, to us in our community. And it was, it was not a, you need to hide this as part of it. All the girls know that we have two dads. It's not like they're preventing or stopping from asking questions about Dustin. They were the whole time they were there. They were asking questions like, "Hey, so what's Dustin doing this weekend?" Sometimes
there was no whispering or shame or whatever.
Emitting that out of the conversation when we're all sitting around a dinner table or a campfire.
Yeah, and I have to say, just to because we talked about North Carolina and some of the struggles that we were faced, but that's just like talking about Tennessee and with what they're going through. That doesn't mean Tennessee is terrible. It just means there's some things that need to change, especially when it comes to the people making laws, right? So I love North Carolina. We love North Carolina, and we are very fortunate. Like we wouldn't live here. If we didn't love it. And we have felt very embraced by our community. We feel really blessed to be in the neighborhood that we're in the community that we're in. It's been amazing. Now, I think as a parent, can you say that about every part of North Carolina? Probably not. Like if we were in a more rural area, it might be different, but that would be the same even when you're in a large, like California or anywhere,
Oregon, Washington,
yeah, exactly.
All of it.
So where I grew up, and we have our family farm, we've talked about building a house out there, and part of it is like we're fearful right now of putting our kids in that school system a little bit, right? Yeah. There's that fear. And even we saw this house on Zillow and we were like, oh wow, this is an amazing house. Let's just go look at it.
So we're developing a farm for those who don't know.
I'm so excited. It looks so cool right now.
And it looks really awesome.
And we're building a wedding venue and cabins and market and all the things, but we're not building our house out there yet because we're putting all our energy in developing this. So when we found this house that was kind of perfect, that was only like a few minutes away from our farm, that's why we were looking at this. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you,
he gives a better backstory than I do. I just jump right into stuff. We were going to meet the realtor. Yeah. And, we didn't, I was fearful that we were going to be discriminated against because we were a 2-dad family, because the next day, this was like a Saturday when we found it, we were going to go on Sunday. And I was like, should we go as a family? Should we why?
How do we introduce ourselves? Like, do I say and I hate that
interesting. It isn't interesting.
Our brain still goes there sometimes, especially when we don't feel like we're in our little bubble, like our safe bubble of like downtown Raleigh where it's super open, right?
But we just walked up and said, "Hey, I'm Dustin. I'm Burton.
These
are our kids." Yeah. And then he didn't bat an eye, and he was great. He actually lives here in downtown Raleigh, and
that's called amazing. PTSD. It's like going back to things that traumatized you, in your shame, in your like past that you're like felt like you had to hide who you are.
I think just like going back to so many things to consider, so many loops to jump through. How did your viewpoint on LGBTQ parenthood, or you two becoming parents in particular, change? Because when you started, the country was in a very different place than when you ended. I know where you're at now with your viewpoint on yourselves and your pride and everything, but what was that experience like going through it?
Yeah, we didn't have anything to compare it to because we were just we'd never been parents before. A lot of this was so brand new that you just don't focus so much on everything else. You're focused in on your family and what you are doing with what am I doing with my husband and these kids, and you're so focused on that you're not paying less attention to everything else. And I think that progress is happening. I mean, you have to realize it was a year before we couldn't even get married before we were going through this process. So as much as we read these headlines and see these things, we have to realize we're a lot further along, even to have this discussion openly, we've come a long way. And I think that being visible is so important. Yeah. I think that was really healing for me. Believe it or not, social media, I never intended for our social media to become a thing, but it was a really healing place for me because yes, we talk about these little sound bites of discrimination, but for the most part, we receive so much love, and we've opened so many other people's eyes. We get emails that say, you guys changed my perspective on what a gay family looks like, or we use your YouTube. My son used your YouTube to come out to me. Yeah, said, "This is a family I want to be like."
And instead of saying I'm gay, being like, just had the parents watch the videos and said, "This is what I want.
This is what I want." Those are the things that keep us going and have hope and faith. And I feel like we are making those steps, and I see it. I don't get bogged down on the negativity. Now, that doesn't mean I'm putting my head in the sand. I think that it's important for us to stay aware of things that are happening and getting involved. But I do think that progress has happened, and I think you'll understand too, even more so when you actually are, in the in the heat of being a parent. You're focused on that. It's like that's like
focusing on what's most important and blocking out the rest.
Yeah.
But I think you're just made an important point. Is just what you guys are doing here too. Is just visibility, showing that there's different journeys. There's everyone has a different chapter that they want to start, whether it's surrogacy, adoption, fostering, and
I think when we were like starting to get attention from social media, like we had to have a conversation where we were like, what's happening? What are we doing? And part of me was like, I'm rather the kids in my kids' class, like their parents, I'd rather them see us pop up on their social media. They see our family before they like are confronted with us at the first like PTA, and they're like shocked by us. Like, I'm like, good, they all see us, good, let more people see us. Like, we exist, we're here, and let them have those internal conversations before they actually are face to face with our family. That's great. It takes awkwardness away.
And see how normal we are, normal relationship, normal family structure.
Exactly.
And being on social media, being in a visible place and all that, what advice would you give to other people who are thinking about or are pursuing surrogacy, adoption, IVF in conservative areas or conservative states?
Every personal circumstance is different, right? And you may be in a wonderful, even in an amazing, open-minded state, but you may be in a neighborhood that's not. So it's all about
community is really important.
Yes,
like I feel like people think that they could do, like, that's what I always say when we have people that are single, wanting to be single parents, and they'll say, what was your biggest advice to me? And I'm always like, community. Like, people, you need people it takes a village. They say that it takes a village to raise a child. It does. And so positioning yourself in a space that feels really safe, that you can be raw and you can have a helping hand help you, is really important. So I think that's key. So it doesn't matter where you live.
It's about a support system.
It's about a support system.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, as you're going through that, the lawyer comment, I'll keep making that because it's really important.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for giving us your time. This will not be the last time we talk.
I just really enjoyed catching up with y'all.
I loved our double date.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's make it happen.
I always feel like talking to you guys just makes me warm inside, and it's like my own little personal therapy session. I think we
adore you guys.
If we could do this weekly,
that'd be great. Absolutely.
You guys have such a positive outlook in a world that's not necessarily like giving you their best.
You continually give us your best.
I just thank you guys for always doing that, and like it obviously shows in how you carry yourselves and how you parent your kids.
Well, thank you
guys.
So much.
That
really
means a lot.
We adore you both. So, and we're so excited about your journey. So
bye guys.
Bye. Oh, I am full of so much inspiration after that conversation.
Yeah,
they're just positive lights. They have so much positivity, optimism.
And I think I try and not make this experience all about how difficult it is, right? I don't want that to ever be the focus of like, this is a really difficult process. I think it's important to know that it's not easy, right? Because you don't want to pull the wool over somebody's eyes and just say like, oh my God, it's so easy to have a baby via surrogacy,
right?
And then somebody in over their head. But I think everyone that we've talked to, so far is just like, it is so worth it. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And just because you're in a more conservative area, check your local laws and it's possible. I mean, North Carolina is definitely not the most LGBTQ friendly place that we've heard of or seen, but you can be a gay couple and you can go through surrogacy and you can have a kid and you can adopt and you can foster.
Yeah, I appreciate this like upward trajectory of we are moving in a positive direction. There are more and more people regardless of what we see on the news, becoming more accepting and loving and open to people who are different than them every day. And to be able to realize that and approach life with that perspective and then teach your children that's actively making the change. That's what we need to really look at. And I think that's what I like took home from this conversation with them. Make sure to check out Dustin and Burton on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. We're going to put all the links where the links go. For more of what we're up to the day-to-day, check us out on Instagram and TikTok and all the things. Make sure to leave us a review. We so much appreciate it. It really helps out the podcast, and it helps us out to keep producing this podcast.
Comment any thoughts, experiences, or questions you have, because that will help us in the future just kind of figure out if there's anything we haven't touched on.
And if you know anyone who you think would be a great guest on the podcast, send them our way. Let us know.
Oh my God, please. Until next time, Daddy's out.